promised his dying friend he'd marry her. She was poor, scarred, and braver than he'd ever be. The morning sun rose slowly over the small town, painting the dusty streets in soft shades of gold. Life here was simple, yet hard. People worked long hours to make ends meet, and everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. Amid this quiet, ordinary life, our man lived in a small house on the edge of town with his parents. He was a quiet young man, careful in his words, and often hesitant to step out of his comfort zone. He enjoyed reading and walking through the fields near his home, but he had never been the kind of person to take bold risks, breaths. He lived in a world of caution, thinking it was safer that way. Armand's life was predictable, and he liked it that way. He had friends, but not many. He had never experienced a friendship that stirred something deep within him. That was about to change the day he first met Zara. Zara was unlike anyone Armand had ever met. She was a young woman, not wealthy, not famous, not someone people paid much attention to. Yet there was something about her that drew people in. Her eyes sparkled with determination, even when life was unkind to her. Her hands were calloused from years of hard work, and her face bore scars from an accident she had endured as a child. Many might have thought the scars would make her shy or withdrawn, but Zara carried them proudly, as if they were medals of courage. Armand first noticed her in the marketplace, where she was helping her mother sell vegetables, but she moved with a quiet confidence, greeting customers with a smile that made even the harshest mornings seem warmer. Armand had gone there to buy some bread, but he found himself lingering, watching her work. He felt an unfamiliar stir in his chest, a mix of admiration and curiosity. Their first conversation was accidental. A small child had run into the street, and Zara, without a second thought, grabbed him just in time before a cart rolled by. Armand had watched, frozen in awe. Afterward, he commented lightly, "You're very brave." Zara laughed, a sound that was both strong and soft at the same time. "I don't have a choice," she said. "Life taught me early to be brave." Her words stayed with Armand. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed more often. He would see her helping neighbors carry heavy loads, comforting a crying child, or speaking firmly to someone who treated others unfairly. Each time, he felt a mix of admiration and self-reflection. He realized that Zara was living life in a way he had never dared. She faced challenges head-on, while he often hesitated. Despite their differences, a friendship began to blossom. Armand found himself seeking her out, looking for moments to talk, to laugh, or even just watch her move through her day. He learned about her life, how she lived in a tiny home with her mother and younger brother, how money was always tight, and how people sometimes judged her for her appearance. But instead of letting bitterness take over, Zara carried herself with dignity and strength. She joked about her scars, laughed about her struggles, and yet there were times when her eyes reflected a quiet sadness.
Armand started to realize that his feelings for her were changing.
He admired her courage, yes, but he also felt a deep sense of protectiveness, a desire to make her life easier, to see her smile without worry. Yet he was careful. He did not know how to express these feelings. He was shy, and fear of rejection held him back. But every time he saw her, every time she smiled at him or shared a small detail about her day, his heart seemed to grow heavier with unspoken emotion. Bricks. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a soft pink, Armand and Zara found themselves walking along a quiet path outside town. The fields stretched endlessly around them, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of earth and grass. They spoke about simple things, childhood memories, favorite books, small dreams, but there was a comfort in their conversation that neither had felt before. At one point, Zara paused and looked at him seriously. "You know," she said softly, "life doesn't wait for anyone.
Sometimes you have to be brave, even if it scares you.
Armin nodded, unsure what to say. Her words seemed to touch something deep within him. He realized that while he had spent so much time avoiding risks, she had spent her life confronting them. He wondered how she managed to carry such strength despite everything life had thrown at her. Days turned into weeks and their friendship grew stronger. Armin found himself learning from her, not in a formal way, but through observation. He noticed how she never complained, how she helped without expecting anything in return, and how she faced judgment without letting it break her spirit. Slowly he began to reflect on his own life, his fears, his hesitations, and his tendency to stay within safe boundaries. There were small moments that marked their growing bond. Armin once fell sick, and Zara insisted on bringing him home-cooked food, sitting by his side as he recovered. Another time a harsh storm damaged part of her house, and Armin offered to help repair it. He realized that being around her required effort, care, and courage, the same qualities she had in abundance. Yet he felt grateful for every moment. Despite the closeness, Armin kept his feelings hidden. He was afraid that expressing them might ruin the delicate balance of their friendship. But Zara, in her way, seemed to understand him better than anyone else. For breaths, she would tease him lightly when he hesitated, ask questions that made him think deeply. And sometimes in quiet moments, she would look at him with eyes that seemed to see everything. One particular afternoon stood out, Paris. Armin had helped Zara carry water from the well. As they rested under the shade of an old tree, Zara turned to him. "You know, not many people would do this for me," she said quietly. "You care more than you let on."
Armin felt a lump in his throat.
He wanted to say so many things, but the words refused to come. Instead, he nodded, hoping she understood without needing to hear them. She smiled and leaned back against the tree, her expression peaceful. It was during these quiet moments that Armin began to realize that his admiration for Zara was changing into something deeper. He was beginning to love her. Not just for her bravery or her resilience, but for the kindness she showed, for the laughter she brought, and for the way she made him want to be better. But life, as it often does, was about to test both of them. Zara's health, always fragile, began to show signs of serious trouble. What had been small episodes of fatigue and dizziness became more frequent and worrying. Armin noticed the change immediately. He tried to talk to her about it, but Zara, ever strong, brushed it off with a joke or a smile.
"Break! I'm fine,"
she insisted one morning, her voice firm.
"I've faced worse."
"Do you worry too much, Armin?" He wanted to argue, to insist that she see a doctor, but he knew she would refuse. Instead, he resolved silently to stay by her side, to help her in every way he could. He would face the fear that he had always avoided if it meant being there for her. And so their days continued. They laughed, shared stories, and walked together through the fields and streets of their small town. Armin's admiration grew, but so did his understanding of life's fragility. He began to realize that Zara, despite her struggles, had lived with a courage he had never known, and in being near her he was learning what it meant to truly care, to be brave in his own quiet way, and to face life with honesty. In those early months their friendship became a sanctuary. Armin found comfort in Zara's presence, a place where he could be himself without fear of judgment, and Zara, in her way, found a companion in him, a steady, caring presence that made her burdens a little lighter. They had no idea that the future would demand even more of their courage, more of their hearts, and that the promise that would one day change everything was quietly forming between them. In the laughter, the shared moments, and the simple acts of kindness that wove the fabric of their bond. And so life went on in the small town, under the soft sun and the quiet stars, with Armin and Zara walking their paths together, unaware of the challenges and deep emotions that were waiting just over the horizon. Yet even in this ordinary beginning, the seeds of something extraordinary had been planted. Of friendship that would test the limits of love, bravery, and human resilience. Life in the small town carried on, seemingly ordinary, but for Arman, everything began to feel different. His friendship with Zara had grown into something deeper than he had ever expected. Each day he spent with her, he admired her courage, her kindness, and her fearless approach to life. But beneath the laughter and shared stories, there was a shadow Arman could not ignore.
It started with small signs.
Zara would tire easily when walking long distances, or she would complain of sudden dizziness. At first, she brushed it off with a joke, saying, "I guess I'm getting old before my time." But Armand noticed the worry that flickered in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. He tried to convince himself it was nothing serious, but deep down, he knew better. One late afternoon, Armand went to Zara's house to deliver some vegetables her mother had asked him to buy. He found her sitting quietly on the doorstep, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the fading sunlight.
"Zara,"
he said gently,
sitting beside her. "You've been looking tired lately. Are you okay?" She forced a smile. "I'm fine," she replied softly.
"Really? Don't worry about me." But Armand did worry. He had grown to care for her more than he had ever realized, and the thought of losing her was unbearable. He wanted to protect her, to keep her safe, but he also knew that some battles could not be fought for someone else. They had to be faced by the person themselves. Days passed, and Zara's condition became more noticeable. She stumbled occasionally while walking, complained of sharp pains, and sometimes her laughter seemed forced. Armin suggested she see a doctor, but she refused. "I don't have time to sit in a clinic all day," she said. "Life doesn't stop for illness." Armin felt helpless. He wanted to do more, but he did not know how. He began spending more time at her house, helping with chores, cooking meals, and sitting with her when she rested. Every small act of care made him feel closer to her, but it also made him realize how fragile life could be. One evening, as they walked along the riverbank, the sky painted in deep oranges and purples, Zara stopped and looked at him seriously. "Arman," she said, her voice soft, "do you ever think about what happens if life doesn't go as we hope?" He hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I try not to," he admitted. "Why do you ask?" She sighed and looked down at the flowing water. "Because I've learned that life is short. Sometimes it takes away people you care about before you even have a chance to say everything you want to." Armin's heart tightened. He had felt the weight of her words even before she finished speaking. He realized that Zara was not just talking about life in general. She was talking about herself. The thought that someone as strong and brave as her could be facing a danger he could not fight filled him with fear. Weeks turned into months, and Zara's health worsened. Her bright energy faded, replaced by moments of weakness and quiet reflection. Arman stayed by her side, doing everything he could to help. Kicked her meals, carried her bags, and sat with her when she needed rest. He tried to make her smile, to distract her from the reality he could not deny. One quiet evening, as the town slept and only the soft chirping of crickets filled the air, Zara spoke to him with a seriousness he had never seen before. "Arman," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to promise me something." He looked at her, his heart racing. "Anything," he whispered. Zara took a deep breath. "I don't want to die alone," she said. "I want to feel loved, even if it's just for a little while. And I want you to promise me that you will marry me." Breaths. Armin froze. The words hit him like a sudden storm. Marry her? She was asking him to make a lifelong promise in a moment of fragility. He wanted to say yes, but he also wanted to ask why. to question if she truly meant it. Yet, when he looked into her eyes, he saw sincerity, fear, and hope all at once. Zara, he began, his voice trembling. I don't know if I. She smiled faintly, placing her hand on his. I'm serious, she said softly. I know my life might be short, but I want to know that someone cares enough to promise me this, but out of pity, but out of love. Will you promise me? Harmon felt a wave of emotions crash over him. Fear, love, guilt, and responsibility. He wanted to protect her, to make her feel safe, and to honor her bravery. After a long pause, he nodded. I promise, he said, his voice breaking. I will marry you, Zara. I promise. Relief and gratitude washed over her face. Brief. She smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks, and Armand felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was not just the act of promising that mattered, it was the trust she had placed in him, the courage she had shown even in her weakest moments. After that evening, their bond grew even stronger. Armand felt a deep responsibility to Zara, but also a newfound strength within himself. He realized that being brave was not just about facing life alone. It was about standing beside someone, supporting them, and keeping promises even when it felt impossible. They spent their days together, cherishing every small moment. Burman would walk with her to the marketplace, help her carry water, and sit by her side as she rested. They laughed about small things, shared stories, and talked about dreams that might never come true. Every laugh, every conversation felt precious, as if life itself was reminding them of its fleeting nature. Zara, in turn, found comfort in Armand's presence. She had faced many hardships alone, but now she felt someone cared for her deeply, someone who would stand by her no matter what. She often teased him gently, calling him cautious and slow. But Armand learned to smile at her jokes, knowing that beneath her strength was a vulnerability only he could understand. One afternoon, while they were sitting under a large tree in the field, Zara turned to him with a soft voice. Do you ever think about what will happen if I'm not here one day? Armand's heart ached. He wanted to deny the thought, to push it away, but he knew he could not. I don't want to think about that, he admitted. But I promise, whatever happens, I will keep my promise to you. I will honor you, Zara, no matter what. She smiled, a mixture of sadness and gratitude. I know, she said. That's why I trust you.
Braver than you think, Armand.
Sometimes bravery is not about facing danger. It's about keeping your heart open, even when it hurts.
As the weeks went by, Armin realized that the promise he had made was more than words. It was a commitment to be present, to care, and to face life with courage, just as Zara had taught him. He began to reflect on his own life, his fears, and the way he had always held himself back. Being with Zara made him want to be better, to be stronger, and to embrace life with a courage he had never known before. The bond between them became a source of strength for both. Zara, despite her illness, found joy in their moments together, feeling loved and valued in a way she had never felt before. Armand, in turn, discovered a depth of emotion and commitment he had never experienced. Their friendship, now intertwined with love and promise, grew into something profound and unbreakable.
One evening, as the sky turned golden and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers, Zara whispered softly,
Thank you, Armen, for staying with me, for caring, for promising me something so important.
You don't know how much it means. Armand took her hand gently in his, feeling the warmth and strength in her touch. I know, Zara. I will never forget this. I will honor you, always. In those days, the small town continued its routine, unaware of the quiet, profound bond forming between the two young hearts. But for Armin and Zara, life had taken on a new meaning.
Every moment together was precious, every conversation a treasure, and every smile a reminder of the strength and courage that existed in the simplest acts of love and friendship.
And so, amidst the ordinary days and quiet streets, Arman and Zara faced life together, cherishing their moments, knowing that the promise made in a moment of vulnerability would shape the course of their lives forever.
Little did they know that this promise, born from love, fear, and courage, would be tested in ways neither could yet imagine, challenging their hearts and teaching them the true meaning of bravery. Life had changed for Armin since he had made the promise to Zara. The quiet days of their friendship now carried a weight that neither of them could ignore.
Zara's illness was no longer subtle. It was becoming a constant shadow over their lives.
Her laughter, once bright and carefree, was often tinged with exhaustion. Yet despite the pain, she faced every day with courage that amazed Armand. Her bed, every time he saw her smile through the struggle, he felt a mix of pride and helplessness. He wanted to do more, to take her suffering away, but he knew that some battles could not be fought for anyone else.
Variation. The night when Zara's condition took a turn for the worse, Armand felt a fear he had never known. She had fainted while carrying water from the well, and he had caught her just in time.
Her breathing was shallow, and her face looked paler than he had ever seen. Panic surged through him, but he tried to stay calm, recalling the promise he had made. He would not let fear control him. He would stay by her side, no matter what. He helped her lie down on the small cot in her home, gently brushing her hair from her forehead. "Zara, you have to stay strong," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I'm here. I will take care of you." She looked at him weakly, a faint smile on her lips.
Man, you don't need to carry me through everything.
"I just need you to be here."
That night, Armin sat beside her, holding her hand as she slept. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the wind outside and her slow, uneven breathing.
He reflected on their time together. The laughter, the long walks, the moments of quiet understanding, and realized how much he had grown because of her. Zara had taught him courage, patience, and the meaning of selfless care. Now, he realized, the lessons were coming full circle in the most difficult way. Days turned into weeks, and Zara's condition worsened. Visits to doctors revealed a serious illness that could not be easily cured. Despite treatments and medications, she grew weaker, and the reality of her mortality became impossible to ignore. Armin felt an ache in his heart that he could not explain. He was facing a helplessness he had never encountered before. He tried to remain strong, but there were moments when he would sit alone at night, silently crying, feeling the weight of the promise he had made. Promise to marry her, to be with her. And now he realized that honoring that promise might be impossible in the way he had imagined. Yet he also knew that giving up was not an option. He had to find another way to fulfill it. Zara, ever brave, never let him see her fear. She would smile, joke, and sometimes tease him, hiding the pain she felt inside. But Armand noticed the small details, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she leaned on furniture for support, the quiet moments when her eyes seemed distant. Each detail was a reminder of the fragility of life, and each made him more determined to honor her in every way he could. One afternoon, as the sun filtered softly through the curtains, Zara spoke quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Armin, promise me something else," she said, her eyes fixed on him. "What is it?" he asked, leaning closer. "Promise me that you will live fully," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Even if I'm not there. Promise me that you will be brave. Not just for me, but for yourself."
Almond felt tears prick his eyes.
He had promised to marry her, but this was something deeper. It was a plea for life to continue, for courage to endure. He took her hand gently, holding it close.
I will live bravely. I will honor you in every moment.
She smiled faintly, relief softening her face.
You've always been braver than you realize.
Bray, the days became a rhythm of care, conversation, and quiet reflection.
Armand would help her with meals, carry her wherever needed, and sit with her as she rested.
They spoke about dreams they might never fulfill, shared memories, and laughed at the small absurdities of life. Each moment was precious, as if they both understood that time was slipping away.
Our man also began to reflect deeply on himself. He had lived a life of caution, always avoiding risk and confrontation.
But now, being with Zara, he realized that true bravery was not just in facing danger. It was in being present, caring, and keeping promises, even when it was hard.
He learned to push aside his fears, to act decisively, and to stand strong even when his heart ached.
One evening, as the stars filled the sky, Armand sat beside Zara, watching her breathe slowly. "Do you ever regret anything?" he asked softly.
Zara looked at him, her eyes reflecting both strength and vulnerability. "No," she said after a pause.
"I've lived with fear, yes. I've struggled,
But I've never been afraid to feel, to care, or to love. That is what matters most."
Our man realized then that she was teaching him a lesson he would carry forever. Love and courage were not about grand gestures or heroic acts. They were about being present, being honest, and giving your heart fully even when it was scary. As the days grew shorter and Zara's health declined, Armand felt the weight of impending loss more acutely. He found himself talking to her quietly, sharing his thoughts and fears and listening to hers.
They would reminisce about the small joys, the walks through the fields, the laughter over shared meals, and the quiet moments of understanding. Each memory became a treasure, something Armand could hold on to even as the present became more fragile. One afternoon, Zara asked him to sit with her in the garden. The flowers were in full bloom, their colors vivid and alive. She turned to him, her voice soft but firm.
"Armand, thank you," she said, "for everything.
For staying, for caring, for loving me in your way."
I know you've changed because of me. He shook his head, feeling a lump in his throat. No, Zara.
"You've changed me. You've taught me bravery, kindness, and how to love without fear."
You've made me better, and I'll carry that with me forever. Zara smiled faintly, resting her hand on his.
"I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Even if I don't have much time left, I know you'll keep your promise in ways that matter."
Armand realized then that the promise to marry her was not just about a ceremony or a title.
It was about being there, caring, and living in a way that honored her strength and spirit. He would carry her courage forward, even if she was no longer by his side.
As the days passed, Zara's condition grew more serious. Armand stayed with her constantly, making sure she was comfortable, keeping her spirits high, and cherishing every smile, every word, and every laugh. He watched her fight with courage, even as her body weakened, and he felt both awe and sorrow. There were nights when he would sit alone by the window, reflecting on their time together. He thought about her bravery, her kindness, and the deep love that had grown quietly between them. He realized that the greatest act of courage was not in refusing fear, but in continuing to love, care, and live fully despite it.
One quiet night, As the wind whispered through the trees outside, Zara turned to him with a soft, tired smile. "Don't be sad," she said. "I've lived, I've loved, and I've been loved."
That is enough! Promise me you'll carry that forward!
Breaths. He held her hand tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I promise, Zara, always. I will honor you. Always." The following days were a mixture of moments of peace and moments of struggle. Armand remained by her side, never leaving her alone. Desk. He spoke to her, held her hand, and shared his heart in ways he had never done before. He realized that the promise he had made was becoming a guiding light, teaching him patience, courage, and the depth of human connection. Through it all, Zara remained remarkable. She faced each day with dignity and strength, smiling even when she was in pain. She joked, shared memories, and spoke softly about dreams she might never fulfill. And through it all, Armand learned what it meant to truly care for someone, to be brave not just for oneself but for the person you love. Even as the inevitable approached, Armand held on to hope, comforted by the understanding that love, courage, and promises could endure beyond the limits of life. And so he stayed with her, fully present, fully devoted, learning every day that the heart could carry both sorrow and joy at the same time, and that true bravery was in living, loving, and honoring someone with every beat of your heart. The morning air was soft, filled with the quiet sounds of birds and the gentle rustling of leaves. Armand sat by Zara's side, holding her hand, feeling the fragility of life more keenly than ever. Her illness had taken its toll, and though she smiled bravely, Armand could see that her strength was fading. The weight of the promise he had made years ago, the promise to marry her, was now heavier than ever. It was not a promise of ceremony or celebration, but a promise to honor her, to carry forward her courage and kindness, and to love her fully, even in the face of the unimaginable. Zara looked up at him with her soft, tired eyes. "Amen," she whispered. "Don't be afraid. I've lived a full life, at least as full as I could."
And you've made it brighter. Armand shook his head, tears slipping silently down his face. "No, Zara, you've given me courage." Desperate. "You've shown me how to live fully, how to care deeply. I can't imagine life without you." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that spoke of acceptance, peace, and deep love. "That's why I trust you, Armand. Promise me you'll live your life bravely, even when I'm gone. Promise me you'll keep my memory alive, not just in words, but in actions." Breath. He squeezed her hand tightly.
I promise, Zara! I promise with all my heart!
In the days that followed, Armand focused on keeping Zara comfortable. He helped her eat, bathe, and move around, and he sat with her for hours, simply listening, speaking softly or holding her hand. Every moment was precious, every word a treasure. He often reflected on their journey, the laughter, the shared dreams, the small victories, and the quiet struggles. Each memory was now a part of him, a reminder of what it meant to care, to love, and to be brave. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, Zara asked Armand to sit with her in the garden. The flowers were in full bloom, their colors vibrant and alive, a stark contrast to the fragility of her own body.
Armand, she said softly, look at these flowers.
They'd grow despite the seasons, despite hardships. That's how I want you to live. Like these flowers, strong and beautiful, even when life is hard.
Armand nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. I will, Zara.
I promise. She smiled faintly and rested her head on his shoulder.
I'm proud of you, she whispered. You've grown so much because of me, because of us. The night grew quiet, and for a moment Armand allowed himself to simply hold her, feeling the warmth of her presence. He knew that each day was a gift, and every moment they shared was precious beyond measure. Then one morning, as the first light of dawn broke over the town, Zara's breathing grew shallow. Armand stayed by her side, speaking softly, holding her hand and reminding her of the promise he had made. I'm here, Zara, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. I'll keep my promise. Always, Red. She smiled weakly, squeezing his hand with what little strength she had left. Thank you, Armand, for everything, she said softly. And then, with a peaceful sigh, she closed her eyes for the last time. Armand sat there for a long while, holding her hand, feeling a mix of sorrow, love, and gratitude.
The grief was immense, but so was the love he had for her.
He realized that the promise he had made was no longer about marriage in the usual sense. It was about honoring her life, her courage, and the love they had shared.
In the weeks that followed, Armand struggled to adjust to life without Zara. The house felt emptier, the fields lonelier, and the quiet moments more profound. But he remembered her words, the promise to live bravely, to carry her memory forward, and to act with kindness and courage. Slowly, he began to channel his grief into action. He started by helping Zara's family, offering financial and emotional support. He repaired the small damages to their home, helped with daily chores, and ensured that they had what they needed. Every act of care was a way to honor Zara's life and the lessons she had taught him. Then he took a broader step. Armand established a small foundation in Zara's name aimed at helping young girls facing poverty, illness, or societal judgment. The foundation provided education, healthcare, and opportunities for those who, like Zara, had faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. He wanted to ensure that her bravery and kindness would continue to touch lives, even after she was gone. Through these actions, Armand found a sense of purpose.
The grief remained, but it was tempered by the knowledge that he was keeping Zara's spirit alive.
He reflected on the promise he had made, the promise to marry her, and realized that he had fulfilled it in the most meaningful way possible.
By living fully, caring deeply, and helping others, he was honoring her courage and love. Years passed, and Armand became a respected figure in the town. People knew him as a man of compassion, courage, and integrity. They knew of his devotion to Zara's memory and the foundation he had built in her name. Through his actions, Zara's legacy continued, touching countless lives and inspiring others to act with kindness and bravery. Yet, Armand never forgot the moments he had shared with Zara. He often visited her grave, speaking to her as if she were still beside him. He shared his thoughts, his hopes, and the progress of the foundation. He glances around in despair. I'm keeping my promise, Zara, he would whisper. Your courage, your love. It's alive in everything I do. In these quiet moments, Armand felt her presence, a comforting reminder that love transcends life, that promises made with sincerity carry a power beyond understanding. He realized that life was not just about the years we live, but about the impact we leave, the love we share, and the courage we show in the face of hardship. Through his journey, Armand had changed profoundly. He had learned the meaning of selfless love, the depth of human courage, and the strength that comes from keeping promises that matter.
He had faced grief, fear, and uncertainty and emerged with a heart stronger, braver, and more compassionate than ever before.
The story of Armand and Zara became a quiet legend in the town, a tale of love, bravery, and enduring promise. People would speak of Zara's courage, of Armand's devotion, and of the foundation that continued to help those in need. And through it all, the memory of a girl who faced life's challenges with strength and dignity lived on, inspiring others to act with kindness, courage, and love. Even in solitude, Armand never felt truly alone. He carried Zara in his heart,
in his actions, and in every life he touched. Her spirit had become a guiding light, teaching him that true love is not measured by time, but by depth, sincerity, and the willingness to honor the lives of those we care for. And so, life continued. The town remained quiet, the fields still stretched under the soft sunlight, and Armin walked his path with courage, compassion, and a heart full of love. He had fulfilled his promise, not in the way most would imagine, but in the way that truly mattered. Zara's bravery, kindness, and love lived on through him, and through every life he touched, she continued to make the world brighter, kinder, and braver. The story ended not with sadness alone, but with a profound sense of hope. Love, courage, and promises, when held deeply in the heart, endure beyond the limits of life. And in honoring Zara, Armin had discovered the greatest truth of all, that life is beautiful not because it is easy, but because we have the courage to live it fully, to love without hesitation, and to keep the promises that matter most.